So we're here in beautiful Seville to attend the Singularity University Summit. And in particular today we're speaking to Raymond McCauley, who is a biotech expert. And in your speech you also talked about 3D printing of biologic tissues. And this is a very interesting and also complicated topic to talk about. So, but we recognize that 3D printing of biologic tissues is going to be an extremely important part of everyday business in the future, near or far. So, the moment 3D printing of biologic tissues is going to be as important as code programming, is it okay and should we make it as widespread to the majority of people, and how can we do that?
That's a great question, and it's such a fertile field. There's so much going on. The thing that people look at right away, and they all say, "Oh, we'll be able to 3D print organs," which is happening, and that's a great field of endeavor, and it'll be great whenever anybody who needs a spare heart or lungs or a kidney, we can do that. But even before we get there, really kind of the killer app for 3D printing, and especially for human therapy, is we are able to take now, say, a sample of your DNA, maybe just a skin cell, maybe actually samples from different organs, and grow those on a chip. And then what we have is sort of a mini you on a chip, and we can use that to do testing of personalized medicine. One of the big questions in the field has always been, we know how to test something with 10,000 people and see if it works. How do we test it with just one person? What do we make work without just testing it on the person? Well, this is how we'll do it. We'll make this little miniature you, and we can see things that work with drugs, things that work with, different genetic engineering things, or things that just work with diet. And even before we get that for individual people, we will have that for just the research. So if somebody wants to do a trial with 10,000 people involved, they won't need 10,000 people. They'll be able to have 10,000 biochips that are personalized, and they can run that without hurting any person or animal. That is a fantastic breakthrough, and nobody has really quite wrapped their head around what happens for drug development and consumer testing because of that. So I think that that's a big thing there. The other thing is, to go on for a second, 3D printing is like this great top-down way of saying, here, let's put things in additive manufacturing. With biology, you've got this chance to sort of combine that with this bottom-up. We can grow things to fill out a matrix. So we could print sort of a sparse matrix of a tissue and have different bits grow into place, or even assemble very complex things, as complex as computers, and have them grow and self-assemble. And people hear that and they think, that's crazy. How could you print something that would be a computer? Well, probably the most complicated mechanism on the planet is a seed, and something that can make copies of itself. And really, I think we're going to start seeing more manufacturing of complicated pieces with this self-assembly and biological growth.
You mentioned printing of organs, and when we hear of robotic cars, one unusual allegation we can make is that robotic cars are going to decrease the rate of incidents and accidents, so people are going to die less often, and that would mean for the hospitals to have a shortage of organs for transplant. That is a strange thing to say, but think about 3D printing of organs is going to be the step forward in order to attack such a problem. Is there some kind of field that is going to be impacted by 3D printing of biological tissues that we still haven't thought of yet?
That's always a great question, and I think one of the great things about talking to more and more people and getting more people involved with biotech is you get new ideas. One of the best things, and I can't say people haven't thought of it because they have and they're doing some nice bits, but if you look at this getting cheaper and cheaper on an exponential curve, and it is, you really see not just 3D printing of life-saving organs for millions and tens of thousands of dollars, but at some point you are actually making anything you want, and it might be blood transfusions, things like that. It might be particular materials that you want to do. So you have self-repairing materials that are 3D printed biological, where you have something that grows in the cracks of a road to seal it. And what we're really starting to see too is using this for food. In some ways, I think in 30 years we will look back and say, how incredibly foolish was it that we would take an animal and grow it to maturity and then slaughter it and use just some of the pieces. What we'll have are foods that are grown just exactly the way we want, in a combination of 3D printing and sort of tissue engineering. We've already got a company in Singularity University related, Modern Meadow, and they're doing, you know, meat, but even before that, leather. And we're starting to see other people doing things like milk and cheese. It becomes very interesting. You get to control all the variables, and you have something that, you know, is pesticide free, has never been exposed to anything bad. Is it natural, organic? It was made in a lab, but you do have this nice control.
So we also know from your speech that you have cooperated and funded one of the first biohacker spaces. And we see these new kind of communities growing larger and more numerous every day. Do you think it will change and it will spread even further in the future?
Oh, I have no doubt. I think we're already sort of seeing it appropriately mutate. And so we see students who are in high school really adopting this. And in some ways, you know, having a biohacker space as some separate piece from a school is probably not the way to go. You want to have it right at the school. You want to have people doing the kind of things that they used to do in what we call vocational education, doing it with these new high-tech pieces. If you go hands-on, you learn so much more about something, whether you're building a computer or making biology. We're also starting to see corporations where, you know, big corporations are good at having money and selling things. They're not good at innovation. But if they open up some part of their infrastructure to hackers to come in, and I mean that across the board, computer hackers, material hackers, art hackers, and biohackers, people come up with new uses, new innovations. And so these sort of very large corporate and very small private citizen science relationships are really yielding some interesting results.
Well, thank you so much, Raymond. This has been so enlightening. Also, your speech was great. And this is Cosimo Orban for 3D Printing Tech.